50 Cent just exposed the $80 million deal that nobody saw coming, and the internet is shook. This wasn't about music. This was about power, leverage, and a move so calculated it rewrote the entire game. Jay-Z's name is all over this, and what just got revealed changes everything. Everybody thought they knew how 50 Cent became a business mogul. The vitamin water deal, the TV shows, the music empire, that was the narrative everyone repeated for years. But what just surfaced completely flips the script on how he actually secured one of the biggest endorsement deals in hip-hop history. We're talking about an $80 million Reebok contract that most people never understood until now. And it wasn't luck. It wasn't just being hot at the right time. This was a surgical business move involving LeBron James, a bidding war, and Jay-Z's entire lifestyle branding strategy. The whole narrative is twisting because 50 just broke down exactly how it happened and why most artists would have fumbled the bag completely. Let me break this down because the details are straight mind-blowing. In this leaked interview clip, 50 Cent explained something that online detectives and hip-hop business analysts have been trying to piece together for years. And for anyone who doesn't know, back in the early 2000s, sneaker companies were in an all-out war to sign the biggest names in entertainment and sports. Nike, Adidas, Reebok, everybody was throwing money around like crazy trying to lock down the next Michael Jordan-level endorsement. But it gets even crazier. Online detectives took this to a whole new level, digging into every single detail like they're on some CSI financial investigation mission. They started studying quarterly earnings reports from Reebok, comparing timelines of when 50 signed versus when LeBron James signed with Nike, cross-referencing interviews from Paul Fireman, who was Reebok's CEO at the time, and even pulling up old footage of 50 wearing different sneaker brands to see exactly when the switch happened. And folks online swear they've connected every single dot. Here's what actually went down, according to 50's own words. Reebok had $80 million just sitting there, not because they were flush with cash, not because they had some massive windfall, but because they lost the bidding war for LeBron James. Nike came in and snatched LeBron for $120 million, which at the time was absolutely insane money for a sneaker deal. Reebok had allocated $80 million, thinking they had a real shot at landing LeBron. When that fell through, that money didn't just disappear. It was earmarked, approved, ready to be deployed. Paul Fireman and the executive team had to pivot fast. They needed a big name. They needed someone who could move product. They needed someone who understood lifestyle branding, not just basketball shoes. And this is where the whole thing gets even wilder. 50 specifically mentions that if LeBron hadn't signed with Nike, if that money wasn't sitting there unused, Paul Fireman wouldn't have pivoted to lifestyle branding. He wouldn't have brought in Daddy Yankee. He wouldn't have brought in Jay-Z's S. Carter line. He wouldn't have brought in the G-Unit sneaker collection that 50 was pushing. The entire strategy shift happened because of one failed athlete deal. Think about that for a second. The trajectory of hip-hop business partnerships with major athletic brands changed because LeBron chose the swoosh over the Vector logo. But here's the part that really separates 50 from everybody else. He didn't just take a big check and lock himself into a long-term deal like most artists would. He specifically negotiated short contracts with high payouts. That's the move. He called himself a high-risk investment and told Reebok to just keep paying him in chunks. That way, if the deal didn't work, they could cut ties. If it blew up huge, he could renegotiate for more. It gave him flexibility, it gave him leverage, it gave him power. And that's exactly what 50 wanted. He wasn't thinking like a rapper chasing a check. He was thinking like a CEO, managing risk and maximizing return on his personal brand. Now, let's talk about the Jay-Z angle, because this is where people get confused. 50 specifically calls out Kanye West for going to Louis Vuitton and not getting paid properly. He's like, what are you doing? They're not even gonna pay you real money. Meanwhile, 50's over at Reebok structuring deals that guarantee cash flow. And he brings up Jay-Z's S. Carter sneaker line, which was also under the Reebok umbrella during that same era. The Reebok S. Carter collection dropped in early 2000s and was part of that exact lifestyle branding pivot that Paul Fireman executed after losing LeBron. So 50, Jay-Z, and even Daddy Yankee were all part of the same corporate strategy shift. They were all beneficiaries of Nike winning the LeBron sweepstakes. That's wild when you really think about it. Fans online been working like full-blown investigators, pulling up every interview, every earnings call, every sneaker release date, trying to confirm the exact numbers. Some people are saying 50 made closer to 70 million. Others say it was north of 85 when you factor in profit sharing and performance bonuses. But everybody agrees on one thing. This was one of the smartest moves in hip-hop business history. Not because of the dollar amount, but because of the structure, because of the strategy, because 50 understood something that most entertainers still don't understand today. You don't just take the biggest offer, you take the offer that gives you the most control, the most flexibility, and the most long-term leverage. That's the difference between getting paid and building wealth. Now, let's get into the motive, because this is where everything starts clicking into place. Why did 50 structure the deal this way? What was he really after? And why does he keep bringing up Jay-Z and Kanye in this conversation? It's not random, it's not petty. It's about philosophy. It's about how you move in the business world when you come from nothing and you're trying to build something that lasts. 50 Cent came up in Queens, New York, in an environment where nothing was guaranteed. Survival was day to day. Trust was earned, not given. And money was the only thing that mattered because it was the only thing that gave you options. When you grow up like that, you don't develop a romanticized view of business partnerships. You don't sign 10-year deals because loyalty sounds good. You sign short deals because you've seen too many people get locked into bad situations with no way out. That mindset shaped everything 50 did in his business career. When G-Unit was at its peak, we're talking 2003, 2004, 2005, 50 was everywhere. In the Club was the biggest song in the world. The Massacre album sold over 1 million copies in the first week. G-Unit Records was printing money. G-Unit Clothing was in every urban retailer. He had his hands in everything. Video games, movies, liquor, sneakers, headphones. The man was building an empire in real time. But here's what people miss. 50 wasn't just building brands, he was building exit strategies. Every deal he signed had a way out. Every partnership had a clause that let him walk if things went south. That's not how most artists operate. Most artists sign the biggest deal, take the biggest check, and pray it works out. 50 signed deals that gave him control. And that's where the Reebok situation gets even more interesting. When 50 says Reebok had $80 million laying there after losing LeBron, he's not just talking about money, he's talking about desperation. Reebok needed a win. They needed someone who could move product fast. They needed someone who had cultural relevance and could compete with what Nike was doing with LeBron and what Adidas was trying to do with their running lines. That desperation gave 50 leverage, and leverage is everything in negotiations. If you're desperate, you lose. If they're desperate, you win. 50 walked into those meetings knowing Reebok had money burning a hole in their pocket and nowhere to spend it. That's when he made his move. But let's talk about the Jay-Z angle, because this is where people get it twisted. 50 isn't saying Jay-Z made a bad move. He's saying they took different paths. Jay-Z went the long-term equity route. He took smaller upfront checks in exchange for ownership stakes. Rockwear, Def Jam Presidency, the S. Carter Reebok line, Tidal, Roc Nation Sports, Ace of Spades Champagne. Jay was playing the long game, building infrastructure, creating ownership. That's a brilliant strategy if you have the patience, the credit, and the connections to make it work. 50 went the opposite direction. He took big checks, short terms, and maintained liquidity. He could move fast, he could pivot, he could walk away from bad deals without losing years of his life locked into contracts. Both strategies work, but they require different mindsets and different risk tolerances. Now, here's where the Kanye West criticism comes in. 50 specifically mentions Kanye going to Louis Vuitton and says, "They're not even going to pay you." And he's right. Kanye's deal with Louis Vuitton back in the late 2000s was more about prestige than profit. It was about breaking into high fashion. It was about being the first rapper to design for a luxury European brand. That's a clout move. That's a legacy move. But it's not a money move, at least not up front. Kanye was willing to take little to no money because he was chasing validation from the fashion world. 50 thought that was crazy. Why would you give your name, your influence, your cultural power to a brand that's not going to pay you what you're worth? That's the fundamental disagreement. And it ties back to the Reebok deal. 50 knew his worth. He knew what he brought to the table. He knew that if Reebok put his name on a sneaker, it would sell. So he said, pay me now. Pay me multiple times. Don't lock me in. Keep proving you want me by cutting checks. That's a completely different mentality than what Kanye was doing, or even what Jay-Z was doing. And honestly, all three approaches have merit, depending on what you value. If you value ownership, do what Jay did. If you value cultural impact, do what Kanye did. If you value cash flow and flexibility, do what 50 did. But here's the thing people forget. Back in 2003, 50 Cent wasn't thinking about 20-year plans. He was thinking about right now. He had just blown up. He had the hottest album in the world. He had Eminem and Dr. Dre backing him. He had the streets and the mainstream on lock. That window doesn't last forever. He knew it. So when Reebok came to the table with $80 million, he didn't hesitate. He took the bag, and he structured it so they had to keep paying him if they wanted to keep his name attached to their products. That's not greed. That's intelligence. That's understanding your leverage and using it before it disappears. But here's the part that really hits different and honestly doesn't get talked about enough. Behind all these business moves, behind all these millions, behind all the strategy, there's a human being who came from extreme poverty and violence. 50 Cent got shot 9 times. 9. And survived. Most people don't come back from that. Most people don't even survive that, but he did. And when you survive something like that, your entire perspective on risk changes. Your entire perspective on money changes. Your entire perspective on legacy changes. Think about it. When you've been that close to death, when you've lost friends, when you've seen people around you destroyed by the streets, by drugs, by violence, you don't have the luxury of thinking 30 years ahead. You think about today. You think about making sure you and your son are good right now. Not in 10 years, not after some equity deal vests, right now. That's why 50 structured deals the way he did. That's why he took cash over ownership in a lot of situations, because cash is real. Cash is immediate. Cash means you can move your family out of danger today, not eventually, today. And when he talks about LeBron James in this interview, there's something deeper there. He says, LeBron, that's why I say we 0-3 boys, meaning they both came up in that same era, 2003. LeBron went straight from high school to the NBA. 50 released Get Rich or Die Tryin' the same year. Both of them were 20-something-year-olds who suddenly had the world watching. Both of them had entire corporations trying to lock them into deals. Both of them had to make decisions that would affect the rest of their lives. And both of them, in different ways, bet on themselves. But here's what's wild. LeBron's decision to sign with Nike for $120 million indirectly made 50 richer. If LeBron signs with Reebok, 50 probably never gets that $80 million deal. The money wouldn't have been available, the strategy wouldn't have shifted, Paul Fireman wouldn't have pivoted to lifestyle branding. So in a weird way, 50 owes LeBron. Not directly, but the chain of events that led to 50 getting paid started with LeBron choosing the swoosh. That's the butterfly effect of business. One person's decision creates opportunities for someone else halfway across the industry. Nobody talks about that enough. Now, let's dive even deeper into the specifics, because the more you break this down, the more insane it gets. When 50 mentions that Reebok lost the LeBron bidding war and had $80 million sitting there, that's not speculation, that's documented. Business journalists and industry insiders have confirmed that Reebok made a serious run at LeBron James coming out of high school in 2003. They put together a package that industry reports say was somewhere between $70 and $90 million. depending on performance incentives. Nike came in at $120 million over 7 years, which was absolutely unheard of at the time for an unproven teenager. But LeBron wasn't just any teenager. He was the most hyped high school player since Moses Malone. He had the cover of Sports Illustrated as a junior. He had the entire basketball world watching. Nike knew they couldn't let him get away. So when LeBron picked Nike, Reebok's board didn't just shrug and move on. They had investor expectations. They had already allocated that money in their budget. They had already told shareholders they were making a big move in basketball and lifestyle marketing. Backing out would have looked terrible. So Paul Fireman, who was CEO at the time, made the call to pivot. Instead of one massive basketball deal, they'd spread that money across multiple hip-hop and entertainment partnerships. That's when the lifestyle branding strategy was born, and 50 was the centerpiece. But here's where it gets even more interesting. 50 specifically mentions the G-Unit sneakers, the S. Carter Reebok line with Jay-Z, and even Daddy Yankee's Reebok partnership. All of those deals happened within the same 18-month window, 2003-2004, all under the same strategic umbrella, all using the same pool of money that was originally meant for LeBron. So in effect, LeBron's decision to go with Nike created opportunities for multiple artists across different genres and different markets. 50 got G-Unit sneakers, Jay got S. Carters, Daddy Yankee got his own line targeting the Latin market. Reebok spread the risk and diversified their roster. Smart move by Paul Fireman, brilliant move by the artists who capitalized on it. But here's what's wild. LeBron's decision to sign with Nike for $120 million indirectly made 50 richer. If LeBron signs with Reebok, 50 probably never gets that $80 million deal. The money wouldn't have been available, the strategy wouldn't have shifted, Paul Fireman wouldn't have pivoted to lifestyle branding. So in a weird way, 50 owes LeBron. Not directly, but the chain of events that led to 50 getting paid started with LeBron choosing the swoosh. That's the butterfly effect of business. One person's decision creates opportunities for someone else halfway across the industry. Nobody talks about that enough. Now, let's talk even deeper into the specifics, because the more you break this down, the more insane it gets. When 50 mentions that Reebok lost the LeBron bidding war and had $80 million sitting there, that's not speculation, that's documented. Business journalists and industry insiders have confirmed that Reebok made a serious run at LeBron James coming out of high school in 2003. They put together a package that industry reports say was somewhere between $70 and $90 million, depending on performance incentives. Nike came in at $120 million over 7 years, which was absolutely unheard of at the time for an unproven teenager. But LeBron wasn't just any teenager. He was the most hyped high school player since Moses Malone. He had the cover of Sports Illustrated as a junior. He had the entire basketball world watching. Nike knew they couldn't let him get away. So when LeBron picked Nike, Reebok's board didn't just shrug and move on. They had investor expectations. They had already allocated that money in their budget. They had already told shareholders they were making a big move in basketball and lifestyle marketing. Backing out would have looked terrible. So Paul Fireman, who was CEO at the time, made the call to pivot. Instead of one massive basketball deal, they'd spread that money across multiple hip-hop and entertainment partnerships. That's when the lifestyle branding strategy was born, and 50 was the centerpiece. But here's where it gets even more interesting. 50 specifically mentions the G-Unit sneakers, the S. Carter Reebok line with Jay-Z, and even Daddy Yankee's Reebok partnership. All of those deals happened within the same 18-month window, 2003-2004. All under the same strategic umbrella, all using the same pool of money that was originally meant for LeBron. So in effect, LeBron's decision to go with Nike created opportunities for multiple artists across different genres and different markets. 50 got G-Unit sneakers, Jay got S. Carters, Daddy Yankee got his own line targeting the Latin market. Reebok spread the risk and diversified their roster. Smart move by Paul Fireman, brilliant move by the artists who capitalized on it. But here's what's wild. LeBron's decision to sign with Nike for $120 million
indirectly made 50 richer. If LeBron signs with Reebok, 50 probably never gets that $80 million deal. The money wouldn't have been available, the strategy wouldn't have shifted, Paul Fireman wouldn't have pivoted to lifestyle branding. So in a weird way, 50 owes LeBron. Not directly, but the chain of events that led to 50 getting paid started with LeBron choosing the swoosh. That's the butterfly effect of business. One person's decision creates opportunities for someone else halfway across the industry. Nobody talks about that enough. Now, let's talk even deeper into the specifics, because the more you break this down, the more insane it gets. When 50 mentions that Reebok lost the LeBron bidding war and had 80 million sitting there, that's not speculation, that's documented. Business journalists and industry insiders have confirmed that Reebok made a serious run at LeBron James coming out of high school in 2003. They put together a package that industry reports say was somewhere between $70 and $90 million. And here's something most people don't realize. 50 applied this same strategy to almost every business deal he did. The vitamin water investment, the SMS audio headphones, the F&N Vodka partnership, G-Unit Records, even his TV production deals with stars. He never locked himself into situations he couldn't get out of. He always kept exit strategies. He always maintained leverage. That's not luck. That's intentional. That's someone who learned from watching other people make mistakes and decided to do it differently. So when people compare 50's business moves to Jay-Z's or Diddy's or Dr. Dre's, they're missing the point. It's not about who made more money. It's about strategy. It's about risk tolerance. It's about what you value. Jay valued ownership and long-term equity. Dre valued one massive exit with the Beats sale. 50 valued liquidity and flexibility. All three are billionaires or near billionaires now. All three did it differently. And that's the lesson. There's no one right way, but there are principles that apply across all of them. Know your worth, maintain leverage, don't get locked into bad deals, keep your options open, and most importantly, don't let corporations dictate your value. You dictate your value. Now, this whole situation gets even crazier when you realize just how many side deals and partnerships were happening in that same era. We're talking about 2003, 2004, the absolute peak of hip-hop's commercial dominance. Every brand wanted a piece. Every corporation wanted a hip-hop partnership. And the artists who understood business were cashing in heavy. Meanwhile, the artists who didn't understand contracts were getting finessed left and right. 50 Cent was in the first category. He watched, he learned, he moved smart. Let's talk about some of the parallel moves happening at the same time. While 50 was negotiating with Reebok, Diddy was launching Sean John clothing into mainstream retail. That brand reportedly did over $400 million in revenue at its peak. Russell Simmons had Fat Farm doing similar numbers. Jay-Z had Rocawear, which he eventually sold for $204 million. So hip-hop fashion was booming, but here's the difference. Most of those brands required the artist to actually run the company. Design, manufacturing, distribution, retail relationships, that's a full-time job. 50 didn't want that. He wanted endorsement deals where he showed up, put his name on it, collected checks, and kept moving. Less work, same money. Smarter strategy for someone who was also recording albums, touring, managing G-Unit Records, and shooting movies. And let's not forget what was happening with sneaker culture overall during this time. Nike was dominating with Air Jordans and the LeBron line. Adidas was trying to make a comeback, and Reebok was fighting for relevance. The S. Carter sneakers that Jay-Z did with Reebok actually sold pretty well initially, but they didn't have staying power. You don't see people collecting S. Carters today the way they collect Jordans. But at the time, it was a big deal. It was the first time a rapper had a signature sneaker with a major brand that wasn't just about performance basketball. It was about lifestyle, about fashion, about culture. 50 saw that lane and jumped in. G-Unit sneakers weren't trying to be performance basketball shoes. They were street shoes. They were for the club, for the block, for everyday wear. That was the market 50 understood better than anyone.
Meanwhile, fans online have been working like full-blown investigators trying to figure out exactly how much money was floating around in these deals. Some estimates say the total value of hip-hop endorsement deals between 2000 and 2010 was over $2 billion when you add up all the artists, all the brands, all the categories, footwear, clothing, liquor, electronics, headphones, energy drinks. Everybody was getting a piece, but not everybody was structuring their deals smart. Some artists signed huge deals and never saw most of the money because of bad contract terms. Some got locked into exclusivity clauses that prevented them from doing other deals. Some had to hit impossible sales targets to get their full payout. 50 avoided all of that by keeping his deals short and simple. If it's complicated, it's probably designed to screw you. That was his philosophy. Now, let's talk about the Kanye West and Louis Vuitton situation that 50 mentioned, because that's a whole different conversation about value and prestige versus cash. When Kanye started working with Louis Vuitton in 2007, 2008, he wasn't doing it for money, he was doing it for credibility in the fashion world. He wanted to be taken seriously as a designer. He wanted to break down the barriers between streetwear and high fashion. And he did. The Louis Vuitton Don sneakers were limited edition, expensive, and became collector's items. But Kanye reportedly made almost nothing from that deal up front. It was about the long game. It was about building relationships. It was about positioning himself for eventually launching Yeezy, which became a billion-dollar brand years later. So in hindsight, maybe Kanye's strategy worked. But in the moment, 50 thought it was crazy to work for free when you're one of the biggest artists in the world. And honestly, both perspectives make sense depending on where you are in your career. If you're young and trying to build your reputation, taking low-money prestige deals might be worth it. If you're already established and you know your window is limited, cash out. Take the money while you can. Don't gamble on equity that might pay off in 10 years. Get paid today. That was 50's mindset. And for someone who survived being shot 9 times, who came from nothing, who had no safety net, that mindset makes perfect sense. Secure the bag first. Everything else is secondary. And this story is still unfolding with way bigger implications than just one endorsement deal from 20 years ago. What we're seeing here is how the entire blueprint for artist-business partnerships was created. Before 50, before Jay-Z, before Diddy started really moving in corporate spaces, most artists just did whatever their label or their manager told them to do. They signed deals without reading them, they trusted people who didn't have their best interests at heart. They got exploited. 50 came from the streets, where you don't trust anybody. So when he got into the business world, he brought that same energy. Read everything, question everything, trust nobody's word, get it in writing, and always have an exit strategy. The bigger conversation is about financial literacy in the entertainment industry. How many artists have made millions and ended up broke? How many signed deals that looked great on paper but were designed to trap them? How many gave away their publishing, their masters, their likeness rights, their merchandising, all for an upfront check that seemed big at the time but was actually pennies compared to what the corporations made? That's why 50's story matters. He's one of the few artists from that era who didn't just make money, he kept money. He built wealth. And he did it by being smarter than the people across the table from him. When you constantly chase the biggest deal, the flashiest partnership, the most prestigious brand, you're not just trying to get paid. You're trying to prove something. You're trying to show the world you made it. But that need for validation can cost you. It can make you sign deals that aren't actually benefit you financially. It can make you prioritize image over income. 50 never fell into that trap. He didn't care if people thought his deals were cool. He cared if they were profitable. He didn't care if he was working with the most prestigious brands. He cared if they were cutting big checks. That's the difference between someone who's chasing fame and someone who's building generational wealth. 50's situation is a wild example, but it's also a warning for anybody who's building a brand in entertainment, sports, content creation, or any field where corporations want to use your name and likeness. Don't just take the first offer. Don't sign long-term deals unless they're heavily in your favor. Maintain flexibility, keep leverage, and most importantly, understand that your name has value. Your influence has value. Don't give it away cheap. Don't let corporations convince you that you need them more than they need you. In most cases, it's the other way around. They need you to sell their product. They need you to give them credibility with your audience. They need you. So act like it, negotiate like it, get paid like it. The more you study how 50 moved, how Jay moved, how Dre moved, you start to see patterns. The artists who win in business long-term are the ones who think like owners, not employees. They don't wait for someone to give them opportunities, they create opportunities. They don't accept the terms they're offered, they negotiate better terms. They don't just cash checks, they build systems that generate checks forever. That's the level everybody should be trying to reach. So, where does all of this leave us? What's the final takeaway from this $80 million masterclass that 50 Cent just dropped? Here's what I think people are missing. This isn't just about one deal. This is about a mindset that's been guiding 50's entire career for over 20 years. Every move he's made since then follows the same pattern: short-term, high payout, maintain leverage. Whether it's the vitamin water investment that reportedly netted him over $100 million when Coca-Cola bought the company, whether it's his TV production deals with Power, PowerBook 2, PowerBook 3, PowerBook 4, all the spin-offs, whether it's his current liquor partnerships, same strategy, same principles. And it's worked. But let's be real, not everybody can do what 50 did. You need a certain level of fearlessness. You need to be willing to walk away from deals. You need to be willing to bet on yourself, even when corporations are trying to lowball you. Most people don't have that. Most people cave. Most people take the safe option. Most people sign whatever's in front of them because they're scared the opportunity won't come again. 50 never had that fear. Maybe it's because he already survived death. Maybe it's because he grew up with nothing, so he's not afraid to lose everything. Maybe it's just his personality. But whatever it is, it gave him an edge that most artists don't have. Now, people are speculating about what's next. 50's been teasing new. So, where does all of this leave us? What's the final takeaway from this $80 million masterclass that 50 Cent just dropped? Here's what I think people are missing. This isn't just about one deal. This is about a mindset that's been guiding 50's entire career for over 20 years. Every move he's made since then follows the same pattern: short-term, high payout, maintain leverage. Whether it's the vitamin water investment that reportedly netted him over $100 million when Coca-Cola bought the company, whether it's his TV production deals with Power, PowerBook 2, PowerBook 3, PowerBook 4, all the spin-offs, whether it's his current liquor partnerships, same strategy, same principles. And it's worked. But let's be real, not everybody can do what 50 did. You need a certain level of fearlessness. You need to be willing to walk away from deals. You need to be willing to bet on yourself, even when corporations are trying to lowball you. Most people don't have that. Most people cave. Most people take the safe option. Most people sign whatever's in front of them because they're scared the opportunity won't come again. 50 never had that fear. Maybe it's because he already survived death. Maybe it's because he grew up with nothing, so he's not afraid to lose everything. Maybe it's just his personality. But whatever it is, it gave him an edge that most artists don't have. Now, people are speculating about what's next. 50's been teasing new business ventures. He's been talking about expanding his TV empire. He's been talking about investing in more alcohol brands. He's been talking about getting into the casino business. Every time he moves, people pay attention because his track record speaks for itself. He's one of the few artists from the early 2000s who's not just still relevant, but more powerful than he was at his peak. That's rare. Most artists peak and then decline. 50's been on a steady incline for 2 decades. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because of smart decisions compounded over time. And the LeBron connection in all of this? That's the wildest part.
LeBron probably has no idea that his decision to sign with Nike created a domino effect that led to 50 Cent getting $80 million from Reebok. But that's how business works. Decisions ripple. One person's move creates opportunities or destroys opportunities for other people. Nobody operates in a vacuum. Everything is connected, and the people who understand those connections, who see the bigger picture, who can anticipate how the dominoes are going to fall, those are the people who win. So when 50 talks about being a 0-3 boy alongside LeBron, he's not just talking about the year. He's talking about a generation of people who came up together, who navigated the same industry pressures, who had to make similar life-changing decisions at similar ages. And both of them, in their own ways, became legends. LeBron in basketball, 50 in music and business. Different paths, same level of excellence, same level of impact. That's the real story here. Stay locked in because this story is about to get even crazier. More details are dropping every day, more interviews are surfacing, and reports say 50 is about to release a full documentary about his business empire that's going to break down every major deal he's done over the past 20 years. The Reebok deal, the vitamin water investment, the Stars partnership, the liquor brands, everything. If that actually happens, it's going to be the most important business education content in hip-hop history, because most artists don't talk about this stuff. They don't want people to know how the sausage gets made, but 50 is different. He wants people to know. He wants the next generation to learn from his wins and his losses. So drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think 50 Cent's short-term, high-payout contract strategy is smarter than Jay-Z's long-term equity approach? Both made them incredibly wealthy, but which philosophy do you think works better in today's industry? And here's the bigger question. If you were in 50's position back in 2003 with Reebok offering $80 million, would you have taken the short-term deal like he did? Or would you have tried to negotiate for ownership and equity in the company like Jay-Z probably would have? Let me know. I'm genuinely curious what y'all think, because this is one of those debates that doesn't have a clear right answer. And do you think LeBron James choosing Nike over Reebok indirectly changed the entire trajectory of hip-hop business partnerships? Because if LeBron signs with Reebok, that money doesn't go to 50. It doesn't go to Jay-Z's S. Carter line. It doesn't go to Daddy Yankee. The whole lifestyle branding strategy probably never happens. So in a weird way, LeBron made a lot of rappers rich by going with Nike. That's a crazy butterfly effect when you think about it. Make sure you like this video if you learned something new, hit subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single update, because we're covering every twist, every new deal, every business move that comes out. I appreciate you for rocking with me through this whole deep dive. This was a long one, but it needed to be, because the details matter, the strategy matters, the mindset matters. And if you're building anything, whether it's music, content, a business, whatever, you need to understand how the game is really played, not the fantasy version, the real version. And that's what 50 just gave us, a masterclass. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there, and remember, your name is your brand, and your brand is your leverage. Don't give it away cheap.